Hey everyone, Jason here from the Millie PM2 P3 Club, and I wanted to do a follow-up video on the Vero Synapse now that I have the Vero Impulse in my hand. It just arrived yesterday and I'm very excited to tell you about it. It's the newest knife to me from Vero Engineering. So if you remember my last video, we talked about this little guy, the Vero Synapse, which is a all titanium knife with different interchangeable scales, M390 steel, and a really cool flipper on the back. The knife also has a secret front flipper design, which if you're better than I am, you can use to flip open the knife. But I'm still not quite good with it yet. The big brother knife, the Impulse, is actually Vero Engineering's first knife. This is the second generation of this knife. Now, the Impulse is an all titanium frame. We have an integral lock here on the frame. Similar pivot style with the little flipper on the back there. And then we have a very cool beefy Tanto blade with a flat grind that's available in 3 different textures. When you order these knives, one thing that's cool from Vero is that you're able to sort of semi-customize the knife. And the original order, you had the choice of a stonewash blade, a belt satin, or you could get a hand rubbed. And the way it was explained to me is that the stonewashed is probably the best for heavy use, the belt satin is best for medium use, and then the hand rubbed would be the presentation grade, really not designed for heavy use at all. My first impression of this knife is that this is one of the finest flipping, finest opening knives that I've ever played with. It really does fly open. The detent is very, very subtle, and it's enough detent that the knife isn't gonna pop open on you, but when it does, it just lets loose. When I compare this to other knives that I've had that have a flipper style with a frame lock like this, I find that the detent is much, much heavier, and this knife has a very light detent. I can tell that Joseph at Vero spent a lot of time dialing in that part and really making it right. We do have an integrated steel interface between the lock and the blade itself. The blade rides on bearings. There's 2 sets of bearings in it, and I did disassemble the blade, the whole knife, the other day because I was just interested to see what I'd find inside. And what I found was that this knife has been very thoughtfully designed so that the part count is minimal. They're very easy to take apart, very easy to repair and put back together again. Really no surprises other than the pivot. The pivot has an interesting feature where this side is threaded and this side is threaded. And when I first started playing with it, I thought it was strange because there's no Torx bit on this side. But the more I played with it, the more I realized it was actually pretty clever. You shouldn't have to adjust both sides of it, but having the ability to adjust both sides allows you to really kind of dial it in and get it just the way you want it. So the more I played with it, the more I appreciated it. The pocket clip is very sturdy. You can see that it ties into the frame of the knife very nicely, and there's a long screw that threads through the back that ties the whole knife together and holds the clip on, and there's a second screw inside the liner that comes up and into the clip to hold it into place. So this is a clip that's not going to come loose on you. Does a very, very good job of holding it tight to your jeans or in your pocket. This knife is not going to fall out of your pocket. The titanium is a rough wash or a stone wash. I really don't know technically which it is, but it has a good coarse look to it. And part of the reason I like that is I have a tungsten carbide wedding band, and this is going to happen sooner or later. And I want a knife that is, going to hold up to the abuse, but also if something does end up scratching it, I know that I can fix this fairly easily. So not afraid at all to go after my titanium with a Scotch-Brite or with some sandpaper and repair damage that might happen on it. So the original run of the Impulses were limited to 100 pieces. This is the second generation, as we talked about, and this is a 250 piece run. You can see that this one's number 109. So the fairly limited sizes of these really keeps the demand up. The company is selling through them every time they do a run. but because they're somewhat limited, the used value on these remains rather high. Just now thinking that when I ordered it, there was another feature that was customizable, and that is the color of the screws. There were actually 4 options available there. There's a blue, purple, Damascus, and then lastly, you could go with just stone washed, and the clip would always match the screws. So very clever, very interesting knife. Street on these was $295. Any upgrades that you did, like the blade finish, would add to that. If you went Damascus, it would go a little bit higher. But I can't think of a nicer knife for $300 that you're going to find on the market with the fit and finish of this knife. The Spyderco brand is dear to my heart, and I like it so much I started a knife club just for Spydercos. And that being said, I don't own a Spyderco yet in this price range that has the action of this knife and feels like this knife. I also wanted to talk about the weight of the knife and the size of the knife. The knife has a 3.7 inch blade. Overall length is 8.63 inches, so it's a big lad. This is a large knife. It's going to be bigger than a paramilitary 2, not quite as big as a military. The weight of the knife is 5.56 ounces, so a little bit on the heavy side compared to the knives that many of you are probably going to be familiar with. A regular paramilitary 2 is about 3.9 ounces. If you get a PM2 and you put titanium scales on it, that's going to top about 5.2. So this knife weighs less than a brass scaled PM2, more than a titanium PM2. When I took the knife apart and I looked inside the scales, they're actually weight relieved. There's a fair amount of material that's been milled out to make the scales lighter, and it's done so without ruining the balance of the knife. It sits nicely in the hand and it's not blade heavy. But that being said, there is an awful lot of steel in the blade. This is a fairly wide blade stock, and it remains wide all the way through the tip. You can see that the Tanto gives it a good edge, so it's nice and sharp, but it is a fairly thick blade. So I think that a lot of the weight of this knife is in the blade itself. So let's play a game and say that we regrind this to make it thinner. Well, one downside of that is the knife is probably not going to open the same. When you have that weight on the centrifugal force of the blade, it's going to help carry it around and make it flick open. So I think part of the reason that this was done was to maintain that flickability. And the other part that makes sense to me is that this is really designed to be a medium or heavy use knife. This is a heavy duty knife. Given the amount of steel that's in that blade and the fact that it's M390, you can really go at this knife and not really worry about damaging it. M390 is not a very fussy steel except for sharpening. It is rather tough. It's rather stainless. It has excellent edge retention. But people I respect who sharpen knives all the time will tell me that M390 is tough for them to sharpen. And to be honest with you, it makes this guy feel better, because I have a hard time sharpening M390 as well. But all those things, when you take the good with the bad and you add them all up, M390 is a phenomenal choice for a knife. It's just really a no-brainer. When I think about these knives overall, I really don't see a lot of downside to them. They're very thoughtfully made. They're comfortable to carry. They're comfortable to hold. My only real criticism of the knives is the pocket clip itself is perhaps a little too tight. Sometimes I've noticed that I need 2 hands to put the knife in my pocket. I need one to pry the clip up and then another to stash the knife. I could probably use with a little less grip power. And then I realized this part is a balancing act, but if it was just slightly taller so that I had a little more clearance, I think I'd feel better about it. It just wouldn't be as hard to get in and out of my pants. I wear denim jeans with fairly thick weave. They're a very stout blue jean material. And at the pocket, where the pocket's folded over, there's a lot of material there. So that seems like it's a fairly easy thing to really try out and get change up on the next version. But I mean, I'm talking about a knife that's designed to cut things, and my only criticism is that the pocket clip could probably use another revisit. That's a testament to the rest of the knife, I think. The blade is incredible. The cutting surface is terrific. The angle of the blade compared to the handle is nice. The jimping is excellent. The grip is wonderful. In the hand, it feels terrific. And it's really a knife that I think is going to make many, many people very happy. So if you like what you see and you want to learn more about knives, please join our knife group. We'd love to have you. Again, we're the Millie Paramilitary 2 Para 3 Club. You can find us on Instagram, you can find us on Facebook, and obviously you can find us right here on YouTube. But I want to thank you for watching. Appreciate you, and talk to you later.